All right. Welcome to another episode of He Said, She Said on the Wild and Well Together podcast. Today, we're talking travel. Becca, you're a world traveler. You are, in addition to the neuroscience, you've got a lot of experience here. So I'm looking forward to this discussion. But when we travel, we encounter new environments, languages, sounds, foods, and navigation challenges. And these activate the brain's dopamine system, which I'm looking forward to you telling me about. And this is associated with motivation, curiosity, and learning. And travel also looks different for everyone in various seasons. So I'm excited to bring a couple thoughts about what travel looks like in my life that maybe is relatable, where we can allow our bodies to find healthy resets without booking an 8-day trip to Europe. As great as that sounds, sometimes that's not within reach. And we're going to talk about different ways to get there. So, as we get into this, I have a question for you, and we're going to do this as a this or that. As you travel, are you a lay on the beach, no agenda, relax type, or are you a action every day, schedule most of the day? What's your jam?
This is a pretty right word softball in the sense, or I don't know the right word for this right now. It's too late, but I'm thinking I like both. And so maybe it's too diplomatic. We'll put it at
Two different. No, you got to choose a lane. Choose a lane.
that.
You got to choose a
Okay,
lane.
so I do travel a lot. Nick and I call it our currency. We're very grateful for the things that we have, and yet we actively choose to purchase some things and not purchase some things, whether that be drinks or nice bags or things like that. So that way, then the money can go towards travel. And we'll get into again staycations and exploring Denver and the surrounding areas, as well as then grand trips to all over the world. But I am a person who loves both, and I will pick one ultimately. But why I say that is I like to do one activity, go explore local, go. I'm a tourist, go see a tourist site, like whatever it is. But I love to do one activity, and then the rest is chill. The mornings, I like to the mornings for it to be, especially if we're on a beach trip. There's something dreamy about grabbing a coffee, making some breakfast, and then just sitting outside and just taking it in. So I actually really love to. Mine's maybe more prescriptive, but I like to just chill in the morning, go on a fun mid-morning adventure or day adventure, and then come back and just chill. That's my ultimate dream, is a little bit of both. But if I had to pick, it would be go, 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 actually. So for me, I just love to explore and take it all in. Sound sights. Put me on a chicken bus in Guatemala, which is essentially like an old school bus from the US. Hundreds of people packed in, chickens in there, animals in there, whatever, and you're just like cruising through the streets trying to make your way through, and it's its own adventure, all the way up to going and trying great foods and wines and chocolates and stuff. So that is me, though. Let's go sightsee, let's go explore, let's go do that. What about you? This or that? Chill on a beach or all the activities?
This will come as a shocker to you. I'm a go, go, go type. I don't sit on the beach very well. Yeah, I don't sit on the beach very well. So I'm inclined to go, go, go. This has changed a little bit with kids, and we'll talk about what travel with kids looks like, but I stick to my answer like pretty firmly. um,
Love
okay, this is a good Oh, go ahead. Yeah.
No, I was just gonna say, like, it's something to know in partnerships too, right?
Oh,
Like, I grew up in a family and I'm like, this functions really well. I love the way that my family travels. And then dating some other people, experience some different things. And then Nick and I format our lives and form it together. And I see how his family travels and then how my family travels. And then how do we actually travel as a unit? And now that we have kids, to your point, it's formatting a whole new thing and saying, okay, what actually works for us? Even to the point of my kids need downtime from everybody, even though they love and are stimulated by so many people, so many things. When we're on vacation, they love their downtime and we need that. Otherwise, it's just like spirals at the end of the night and stuff. So, again, to each our own. And how does it look different in different seasons? That's what was going to be my plug right there.
yeah. Yeah. Well, this is, I think you touched on something really poignant, which is I'm a big believer that travel, you may have a group of friends, but within that group of friends, you're not going to travel companionship is not a given. Like different styles of travel can really reveal a fracture in a relationship or widen it. And I'd like to think that you can leave that part in its place, and you know that like, okay, this is the type of this friend who's very dear to me. This works well when we're in our routine, but not we don't travel the same. And then on the flip side, as Miriam and I were dating, we realized very early that we like to travel the same, and it worked, and we did, and it just we put more on the calendar. We loved it. Um,
I say
but
y'all log a lot of travel time, whether for work, right? We get into work travel too, but between work, but also play, right? You guys have traveled the world too, and continue to as well. It does look different, and we can get into that. But let's skip playing chicken and like head into this discussion because this is way more fun.
yeah,
Unless I want to add it. Go ahead. If you want to add it in, we can for sure. If you have a way to, otherwise, let's skip it. Yeah, yeah. So, but back to like you and Miriam, I'm thinking about like you guys have explored it too. And so finding that partnership matters. And some of my favorite friends to travel with, we've come to an agreement that it's, hey, this is the overall thing. Here's a few things we want to do. Here's a few things you want to do. Which ones blend? And on the ones that don't, hey, we're still going to go do it. I think that that's one of the greatest things about travel is giving ourselves permission to say what works for you and what works for me, we can do together, or we can also give permission to say, go do you. I'm gonna do me, boo, and we'll meet back up for dinner, or we'll meet back up at this activity or whatnot, or we'll see you on.
mm-hmm.
And even with my siblings, like that's kind of become more of our adventure. And I'm very grateful for that because then there's not the pressure of we have to all do the exact same thing, feel the same way, and have a great time together. Cause that is really anxiety provoking. And my sister and I have come to the place of like, let's share and let's invite each other to these. And sometimes we just say like, hey, our family's going to go do this. We'll see you in a few hours. And that's permissible. And so I bring that in too of really giving permission to what does travel look like on the grand scale and then the more macro really. And then on the more micro, what does that look like? So let's get into it then in more detail. Before we do you travel? You've asked this, like, do you travel to relax or explore? Right? Both of us said go, go, go. We lean towards that or we just commit to that. And then are you the person who plans it or do you go with the flow?
I love when travel's planned for me, but I mean, I plan. So like when we went to on our honeymoon, like I planned the majority of that or all of that trip, and it was great. We had a lot of fun. You and I were discussing this past week how nice it would be to potentially use a travel agent, though. We do so much. I mean, look, traveling for work, like, and we have a service that like it's all on one website. It's really nice, but the thought of being handed a package of like, here's what you're gonna do, but and communicating up front, like what we like to do, sounds amazing. So to your point,
Yeah.
we are willing to forgo a lot of things in the next few years to be able to have an experience like that, I would say. How about you?
Yeah, I'd love to actually pick it because I get nerdy and get to figure out what it is. So I do love that. And also a few of the things like Nick surprised me for a 10-year anniversary, which is so fun. And we're gonna go explore southern Mexico and just have a good time on the beach too and stuff. And so that'll be a ton of fun. And he did it all. And I'm like, oh, this is really lovely. So I don't think I knew how lovely it is until now experiencing it. And so there, to your point, there's fun because then with control comes then prioritizing what I want or what I think we want, the rural we, but we'll call it what it is, like things that I'm excited for. And then when someone else plans it, I'm like, oh, there is a gift to that of just showing up and not having the mental load that we do in our regular day capacity. And that does start to get into some of the neuroscience and we'll go there. But I think one of the other pieces is travel pulls us outside of our routine, right? And so when we get into traveling, whether for work or for personal, we'll go personal right now, but often our identity is tied to our roles. And so as I travel, even for you, right? We'll go to work actually first, just for this. I got to go to DC on a work trip. And at first I packed my bag and all this, and I'm like, where's pacifiers? Where's medicine?
Totally.
Where's a bottle? And where's like the little people clothes? And then I'm like, what am I doing? Put 5 things in your bag and let's go, right? And it was so easy, so fun, and so I think I had an extra pep in my step because 'cause I'm like, mama here has no responsibilities besides taking care of one. And
Yeah,
that alone was its own energy. And I felt different walking through the airport, not like holding hands and bags and trying to figure out Frommers over here of what am I going to plan and what am I going to do for all of us. And so I think about that of my role, even on a work trip, looks different than when I travel with family. So those are two different things. But going into the personal then, I think about that of like when Nick and I travel alone, which is rare, but sometimes the two of us get to go on trips, like for our 10-year anniversary or different things like that. That also looks different than when I travel with my siblings and my parents, and there's 12 of us on the trip, or when I travel just the 4 of us, or we add friends in, right? So there's all these different dynamics that play in. But ultimately, it still doesn't go to the same of packing lunches the night before for school the next day, or going to the gym in the morning, or being chauffeur around town for, every day and the roles and responsibilities we play there. So thinking through that, travel temporarily removes those roles. And in that, our normal schedules and expectations change and it allows us to see how we naturally respond to the world for good, for bad, for ugly, the ups and downs of responding to the world. And so when we travel, it allows us to see, are we adventurous, like you and I just talked about? Are we curious observers? How much do we value culture? How much do we value comfort? How much do we value connection? Those different things all play in to us traveling. And who am I when those structures are gone? Which is terrifying for many. And I'll put myself out there. A travel that I have yet to say yes to, so people can call me out for this, but is backpacking trips where I don't get to stay in a lodge at the end of the day. Like, I could go sit and eat all sorts of foods, sit and, like, be in the same clothes for days. I could do a lot of things that are very uncomfortable. I could go to places that don't speak the same language, all those things, those don't scare me. The idea, though, that I would have to sleep in a tent or below the stars is not appealing to me. What'd you say?
Sleep on pine needles.
Yeah, exactly. That does not excite me. So please hear me say, like, even though I say I value travel more than most things, sleeping under the stars is not dreamy for me. Looking under the stars, drinking a glass of wine, or even just sitting and laying under the stars for an hour, but then let me go inside and sleep. And so thinking about that, if that structure was gone, would I still say yes to going on that trip? Those are some of the questions we start to ask. And then it gets deeper into, well, why do I crave these structures? Why do I crave these different components of my life, these different rituals, like we've talked about, the different realities and rhythms of our lives? And so for you, how does that sound? What about a structure? What is something that would really push your limits these days?
I'm gonna be honest with you. Pushing my limits is going on a 2-hour flight with my 13-month-old. That's pushing my
Yes.
limits when it comes to travel right now.
Yes.
I mean, I do. I mean, alone, I travel all the time for work, but
Yeah.
as a family, travel looks very different these days. So I call it travel with a capital T is what we have in mind when we have in travel, like faraway destination, a week plus, different language. I have a hack on this, by the way. I'm gonna step off this path and I'll come back. I have a, I like to read a nonfiction book and a fiction book that takes place in a given country before I go there. Part of the
Oh,
benefit of like reading, one of the things that you get reading is like this escapism, and you get to see this
yeah.
place in your mind's eye. To then actually follow up and go there is really rewarding. And the nonfiction piece is like helpful for context, historical context frequently. And the nonfiction, excuse me, the fiction is helpful for culture and understanding of like culture or just how things work, right? Like people to people, like one-to-one interaction. So that is one of my favorite things to do when I travel, when I get to plan in advance. I try to read at least a portion of 2 books about the place. Anyway,
That is so cool. Wait, wait, wait. Don't skip over that. That I
yeah.
just wrote that down. Like in the middle of this, I'm like, that is genius because it allows us. It's the same as choosing to learn 5 phrases, right?
Mhm.
Ideally, we would learn the language. That's the dream for every place we go. But to become, to get to know the locals and to get to show respect in different things. So my commitment is always to learn five phrases of the language,
Yeah.
sometimes more, but for sure 5 phrases. And then for the kids now, we have them do a little book report. They're old enough to read, some chapter book, not chapter books, some like picture books on where we're going or whatnot. That's just important to us. And so we go to the library and access that. But I'm like, this I just circled and wrote down because that's genius. And a fiction book, the escapism, that's such a part of travel. And so community members, I hope you're having an aha moment as much as I am because that's awesome, John. I appreciate you sharing that, and that will happen
It
after.
the payoff of the travel there is greater, and you have the escapism without the feeling of like longing. You're like, oh, I get to go to this place. So yeah, going to Cuba, read a nonfiction and a fiction book about Cuba, Italy, Thailand. I did not, but you get the point.
Yeah, you had other priorities in Thailand. That's fine.
I mean, I was riding on a motorcycle around. I should have. I read a Vietnamese book. Uh, The Sympathizer doesn't count. um, no. So that this is travel with a capital T is what I mean. I don't get to do that much these days, or we've not requisitely prioritized it. Maybe I'll put it that way for a number of reasons. Budget, we are budgeting. That's just the reality of a family of five for us. Prioritizing free time with families, like breaks. So that's like holidays. Once you fill in the holidays with family time, there's not a lot of time to go elsewhere. And let's just be real, traveling as a parent can feel like just parenting in a forward place and stacking the cards against you, where you don't know where all the creature comforts are, you don't know where the wipes are, you don't know where all these things are. You're gonna go try to get them to eat food that you're gonna think is amazing and they're not. So that's real as can be. Here's what I travel can look different and it could be still be fun. So I have two versions of this. One is like micro adventures and the other is mini getaways. So micro adventures are changing the day, not your life or not your week. And this is literally like you wake up and you sleep in your own bed. And it's like an activity that could be 2 to 6 hours long. It's a drive and it's just something that shakes you out of your routine. So for us, this looks like driving to this funky area of the Sierra foothills that is like old gold mining towns. And it's really cool. Like that you're in the forest, there's great food, there's really unique, I shouldn't say really unique. There's a different culture than what I see in suburb Sacramento. It's like a combination of survivalists and like pot growers
Yeah. Yeah.
that all congregate in a town. And
Lively bunch.
yeah, lively bunch. But it's great. We get away. We for a weekend, for a day, and we can be home at night. This could be like other examples could be like sunrise coffee somewhere, a new park or trail or picnic, a tourist in our town. How often do we just go see the things that a tourist would see in our own town? So that's like museums, downtown walk, local landmark. Like, don't be too cool to do the thing in your town. That's my advice. Don't be too cool to do that. All right. Because you're not that cool. No one's that cool. Um,
You know, there's a tagline right now where it's like, "Don't do the touristy things," and I'm like, I'm gonna call a spade a spade. I'm a tourist in this town. Why,
yeah,
like, when I travel, why wouldn't I do the touristy things? They exist for that reason. It's good to give as much as we, take or whatnot. So I understand that. But if we're finding meaning in it, let's find the meaning in it. Or in our local towns, why wouldn't I go, like in Colorado, why wouldn't I go to Red Rocks? Or why wouldn't I go to
yeah.
places that we want to see? Because they are such gems. They're so.
Becca, when was have you gone to the Denver Mint in any recent history?
No, but I went with you in third grade.
That's right. Okay, so you need to if your memory is as sharp as mine, you need to go back to the Mint, which is I don't remember much about it. So you should go to
And pennies are no longer being produced. So what are all that space
yeah.
being used for? So, yeah.
So not to call you out, but to call you out. But I think what I'm getting at here is that these micro adventures are like they're proof you don't need permission to feel free.
Yeah.
You are in control so long as you can put gas in your tank, literally, and pack a picnic. You can create an adventure for yourself. The next one is mini getaways. This is like one night, maybe 2 nights, and just sleeping somewhere else. Let's be real again, after you get the pack and play set up and you get everything set, can feel like a reset. Um, it is as perhaps that reset is not just the relaxation, but the things that you talked about, the adaptability that comes with, I need to make coffee. I don't have my regular coffee maker. What does that look like? The other cool things about this, though, is like this is a cool opportunity to split lodging with like friends or family, and use what you already own. So it could be, you're bringing your cooler, your snacks, your groceries. So this is another budget friendly option that is within your reach, probably more spur of the moment. Maybe you're bound by how soon you can get a vacation rental, like an Airbnb or a hotel or a friend's house. But this is what travel looks like to us these days. And we've made some great memories doing it this way. And should the day come that we decide to leave California, I can look back on it knowing that we've turned many, many stones over, that we don't have no regrets, right? No, we have been to we've been to a lot of cool places. We didn't tell ourselves an escape requires a plane ticket. So
Yeah.
that's where we are with our in travel for us these days. I do want to get back to travel with a capital T in the coming years, but that's my guidance for travel as a millennial with a family.
And I think that that's brilliant because whether traveling capital T, going big like, somewhere, or staying local, or mini vacations, like you just said, all of it falls into similar categories of saying the adaptability, like we just talked about, and we'll get into neuroscience in a minute. And then also wherever we are, it's a new place. So our brain, and Jen and I got into this actually in the previous one, but is this idea of like our brain craves novelty. And so in craving novelty, it reminds us that we're alive. It reminds us that there's other places out there. It reminds us that we matter and yet we're part of a bigger ecosystem. And so all those things are super important. So jump back and listen to her if you're interested in hearing specifically about the novelty and that power, because regardless if it's a staycation, a day retreat somewhere, or it's full-fledged 8 days away, all of those matter. And shout out to what was the phrase you just said? Something like you need a plane ticket to travel. Like
Yeah, yeah, you don't need a plane ticket to have an adventure.
to have an adventure. Epic. Imagine if I'm like, hey, here's the other thing. If I'm like, hey, John, would you rather have a plane ticket to go explore the Louvre, which is so cool? Again, you'd probably say yes to that. But then, or if I was like, hey, or you could drive and go stay and fish for a week, which one would you pick? Right? Like,
As much as I love to fish, I would take you up on the Louvre at this point in my
okay.
life. Depends. Yeah, if you said you can go to the Seychelles to fish, this is my cop out. You give me a different plane ticket, I'm going to
All
the
right. Well, we'll
Seychelles to
figure that out.
fish.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I love that.
No, by
Um,
the way, this is a real debate because talk about prioritizing travel. There are plenty of places that I want to go and fish for 4 days straight. That is a tough sell to most people in the world, except for my brother and my dad.
okay. Here's the thing. Maybe this is something you do. Again, Miriam, forgive me, but is that in the next 2 years, you say, hey, dad, brother, me, let's go on a fishing trip somewhere exotic, somewhere random that we do save up for, that we do whatever. And it's the three of us, and we're going to go for 5 days, 7 days, whatever it might be. We're going to go. We're just going to go. We're going to send it. And that's like what we get to look forward to. I know you'd want to do that every weekend. But saying the reason I say that is because we asked my mom what she wanted to do for her 70th. And that's when she said, I want to go to the Christmas markets in Europe. And so my mom and I, back in November, we did that. And it was a really sacred time. And so I say that of then ask Miriam back, hey, Miriam, what do you want to do? Right. And she's
Oh,
like, says whatever she'd like and stuff. But that is another cool part about travel is it makes different parts of our hearts come alive, or our bodies come alive, and saying like, oh, this is what I'd love to do because of the growth moments, because of the nostalgia that it creates in the long run, and because that internal understanding of I can do hard things, or I can explore and adapt to hard places or different places. And in that, I come back with deeper gratitude, deeper understanding, deeper appreciation, and or just a sense of like, dang, I really love this Asian food now, whatever it might be, or oh, I love tacos, or I love whatever, right? Like it always comes back to
well, I think you're talking about stories. Like it creates travel. It creates stories.
yeah,
Is that fair to
exactly.
say? Yeah.
Yeah. And it reminds us that we are connected to humanity. It's shared memories. And in that, I appreciate you saying that because like when we travel, it activates we'll go into the neuroscience. It activates the dopamine system, which is associated with with motivation, curiosity, and learning. And so if my brain if I'm constantly doing spreadsheets, and again, nothing against spreadsheets, but if I'm constantly just one foot in front of the other, when's the last time I learned something new? Or when's the last time I got curious about something? Or on the flip side, or in addition to that, motivation. So those two things, learning, curiosity, motivation. If I'm someone who's exhausted all the time, I'm not motivated to anything, guess what? When I go on a trip, I wanna explore everything. I wanna take in everything. I wanna have those moments of, "Wow, look at this." So those are really beautiful things that happen in our neurological system that says, "Hey, life is worth living." And when we come to a place of wild and well together, that is something that I want us to remember is and these can happen on micro trips. You go to oh my gosh, go into the forest, right? In Northern California, see the redwoods. How epic is that to remind us of our purpose in life as well as like the vastness of creation? That is so cool to be like, these are yeah, go ahead.
The term I use is and it's overused is awe-inspiring. And this came up in the context like I was working with um, one of my leaders a couple of years ago, and he plans great retreats to national parks for the most part. And at the time, he was asking, does this group of people, do you guys want to go to a big metro area? Do you want to go to like a Chicago or an Austin? Or would you, I know it's kind of different, but would you be inclined to go to national parks? And I was like, look, we travel to these places for work, these big metroplexes all the time. What are we going to do as a group that we don't get to do in small groups when we go? Go somewhere
Mhm.
that is awe-inspiring, that gives you a sense of scale, of how big you are, where you fit in this world. And it's, you're going to do it with coworkers. It's going to look a little bit different than it was family or friends. But the thing they hit on is awe-inspiring. It insert any cool place or look like nature or city that you're not familiar with. That is what I look for when I travel, again with a capital T, but it can be done in smaller spurts depending on, how well you research and how far you're willing to drive within a day.
Yeah, absolutely. And for other people, things that would be mundane for you, let's say, would be that awe-inspiring because I haven't experienced or vice versa, or how many people come to Colorado, I'm like, "Oh, yeah, I've been there, I've done it 15 times," and you have to still go, right?
Yep.
Because if I do remove my ego, I say, "It is worthwhile." Going to see a concert or a movie or sitting at Red Rocks, even just being there at night for free, epic. And so that's a 45-minute drive to your point, right? And I realize Colorado is so beautiful, but there are also mundane things about Colorado. And so really figuring out these trips, like deciding, okay, what's going to create shared memory? We just you went into that with your friends or with colleagues even. And that happens in the hippocampus. Just to come back to the neuroscience is when we create memories that we're able to reflect on, that those become meaningful emotional anchors for the rest of our lives. You brought up the mint, and I'm like, I haven't thought about the mint for a hot second.
You're welcome.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. I'm like, I can picture the stone building. I can picture the guards. I can picture the conveyor belts. Like there are pieces where I'm like, oh my gosh. And then I could just rattle off four different friends that I'm like, remember so and so, remember so and so, because then that pulls it into relationships. And relationships matter immensely when we talk about places that surprised us or that we found something unexpected or that we say, hey, I remember being part of that world. I remember being part of this connected community and belonging matters there too.
I couldn't agree more. I look at following up on the mint, I look at currency differently. I can envision when I get a random question from my kids about how money's made or whatever it is, like my mind goes to being in the Denver Mint.
I love that.
Yeah.
That's so fun.
But
One of my dearest friends oh, yeah, go
no, it's just I think the point here is shared stories when traveling with companions, friends,
ahead.
spouses, family creates memories and stories that are worth telling. And those are, I mean, that's like the currency of life. Like, is like
Yeah,
a collection of memories that are worth sharing with people later because it takes you to a happy or stressful or funny situation. Um,
yeah.
yeah, I, I don't know the neuroscience behind it, but I'm all about it.
Yeah. Again, just like as a reminder, what I would say is like the through the main parts is the adaptability that it creates in our lives, which we all need that because life throws so many things at us. So flexing that muscle of one step in front of the other. We are out of the season of life that you're in. And let me tell you, travel is a lot easier. So I'm just going to call that out in the sense of for the listeners and community members of Wild and Well Together who are like, travel is so scary right now. And how do I pack bottles and pacifiers and all the things, 15 different outfits for every kid as they, are infants and spitting up or whatever it might be to move through that? Or how do I sit for 2 hours with a toddler? Yeah, that's hard. That's really hard, especially as 13-month-old or 16-month-old, right? Like until they get to about 3 or 2.5. And yet those times shall pass. I will say that those times shall pass. In addition, find places that still do bring meaning. Maybe it's a day trip. Maybe for some of us, we had to learn to travel really young or with as a young family. Otherwise, we wouldn't have gotten to see Nick's family. So for
Yeah.
us, right? And in some regards, I remember you've traveled alone without your wifey down to, on a 4 or 5 hour flight with 2, 3 kids. And
I,
so there's each of those things that we choose to do because it's worth it. And so maybe that's the reflection point of in the adaptability, when do I say I'm willing to adapt or willing to go miss trains or have, language barriers or unfamiliar customs or circumstances, discomfort to go experience family, to go experience friends, to go experience new culture or beach or escapism, whatever it may be. What am I willing to face adapt, like to adapt? How am I willing to adapt to that situation? So that's one piece. Then the second one is really saying, okay, science says and psychology says that this is going to create memories that last a lifetime. And those shared memories are meaningful anchors, meaningful emotional anchors for me for the rest of my life. They bring me to a place of belonging. They bring me to a place of purpose, of remembering I can move through hard, difficult things or challenging moments, or maybe they give a good laugh. I'll share this one. When I traveled, man, to South Africa to be with Nick's family, fortunately, we travel with my mother-in-law and my sister-in-law, and they're amazing travelers. But I have them as support. Nick has Marcus sitting next to him, and then I have Lucy on my chest. She's 3 months old. We sit down before we take off. Lulu throws up all over me.
oh.
And I'm like, here we go. We have a 16-hour flight. I packed for everybody except for a change of clothes for me.
Oh,
And
gosh.
I'm like, here we go.
Yeah.
And I'm like, babe, what do you have? Marcus, what do you have? Like, I'm like looking through the stuff, like, what did I pack? Like, I'm taking wipes and like trying to clean up everything.
Yeah.
And yet we land and I sting like it's breast. And it's all just everything that people are like, gross. But I changed, like, and I was wearing Nick's clothes and we land and Nick's family comes and collects us and they're laughing so hard and they're like, what's going on? Like, why do you look like Nick? Right. And I'm like,
Yeah.
Lulu threw up on me 5 minutes into it. And like, but it turned into a laugh. And now it's just like part of our stories of like, hey, I did hard things. And so I remembered, okay, a 2 hour flight isn't as big of a deal as that long one. And then I'm like, actually road tripping, like knock on wood, Nick's going to really be frustrated with me because he's going to say I jinxed it. I have yet to have a kid throw up in a car seat. That is such a win. I've yet to clean up a car seat. I'm so grateful for that. So these things change, right? These things change us in travel and parenthood. Traveling expands us. It just does. But it creates memories and memories that we laugh at or we think about. And then most of them are just really behind the scenes, building us up to be better humans and recognizing that we're part of a greater world, like a bigger world, that we're actually really the same. And so in a world that feels harsh, critical, all of that, we're actually really the same. And it just is a part of our lives. We can mention stories, right? Thailand, Italy, I think you've also been to Northern Ireland or Ireland and some places like us too and stuff. But there's just so many good places. And then also Northern California or Colorado or shared experiences in those places too. So travel allows us to escape. You said this in the beginning. And it also allows us to like ground down and really find meaning in life. So both beautiful things. Before I do 60 seconds to centered, anything else you have for us for the night?
No, I think it's, travel expands perspective, gives you deeper empathy for fellow human beings, puts you in the shoes of people, puts you outside your typical role, and also travel is not limited to the rich, famous, and influencer community. It can look different and it can be as meaningful and as adventurous as anything you see on your Instagram feed. It's all about your creativity and willingness to make it happen.
I so appreciate you in that, and I think that'll be one that we do soon, especially as we head into summer months in this northern hemisphere, is saying, "Hey, how do we do local travel and how do we do it well and value it with deep meaning?" Because some of my best memories are very inexpensive and accessible, and it actually makes it far less stressful to
Yeah.
have that. So we'll come back to that then in future weeks. I just made a note of that. All right, 60 seconds to center then. This is a visualization. So for the listeners, find just a comfortable seat or laying down if you're listening to this or walking, but you can close your eyes if that makes sense. But really I want you to visualize a beautiful place that you know, a place that sparks joy, a place that allows you to relax or to adventure. I want you to think, are you alone or are there people around you? What are the colors, the sights, the sound? Is the wind there? Just start to really picture what is the setting that you're in. What perspective shifts for you there? Does it allow you to escape? Does it allow you to see some of your favorite humans? Does it allow you to understand how you exist in this world? And what about the pace of life? Is it slow? Is it fast? Does it allow you to breathe for a moment? And then coming back, what of those things feel attainable now? Coming back to the here and now, what parts of that made it so special? Holding on to that understanding, that is the power of nostalgia. That's the power of shared memories. That's that emotional anchor that reminds us why we exist in this world. So take a deep breath and then come back to the here and now fully. I hope you all have a wonderful week. Take time for yourselves. John and I care about you deeply, and we're forever grateful for each of you. Have a wonderful week, y'all. This is another He Said, She Said. Take care.
In the spirit of travel, au revoir.